Thanks for the introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. The Kip McGrath business started in the garage 46 years ago in 1976. Mum and Dad wanted to help kids and make money commensurate with the effort that they put in. As such, it got to 6 centres around the Hunter Valley by the mid-80s, and Mum and Dad looked at how to expand the business, and they decided to franchise. So we've been actively franchising the business over the last 40 years around the world. So we started in Australia, went to New Zealand in 91, the UK in 93, and South Africa in 96, and a few other countries in small areas around the world. So how it works is basically a franchisee is a school teacher. They'll open up a centre of around 60 to 80 square metres in the suburbs, out where all the people are. They'll advertise locally, as well as we do national advertising on TV, as well as radio and online. We ask the students to come in for a free assessment. When they have a free assessment, we determine what skills the child does or does not have. Usually, our clients are more than 1 year behind where they should be with their peers. So that will require around about 18 months to 2 years worth of tuition, which at around about $65 to $68 means that each client is worth around $3,000 to $4,500, depending how long they stay. Now, with an acquisition cost of around $200, we're seeing that the average franchisee has about 100 students and turns over around $300,000 and makes a profit of about 40%. So it's a good income for teachers. So we have been developing that for a long period of time. We've used technology to help our business. One of the things that we started to do from a very young age was actually look at using computers to help with the drill work of the students, so we can teach in small groups. It's not one-on-one, it's usually around 4 students per teacher. So at 4 students per teacher, selling it at $65 an hour, you're making around gross $250 an hour. So you can see why the teachers would be interested in running one of these businesses. The actual technology has always been a very big part of our business, and as such, we started with Apples, then we moved to IBMs. But the big push with our business was when we went to basically a network-based business and looked at the cloud about 12 to 13 years ago. Now, during that time, we actually distribute centrally off the AWS platform. And basically from there, we were able to develop an online product. Now, prior to COVID, the online product was a very small part of our business, but our business was significantly impacted by COVID. So what do I mean by that? Well, when the CFO walks into your office and says that revenue is down 70%, that's a big impact. So we pivoted to online. Prior to on the COVID lockdowns, we were around about 45,000 students per week and about 500 online. After a few months in the pandemic lockdowns, we were at 26,000 online students and no face-to-face. So we were starting to fight back from there. So that was at the end of 2020. By the end of 2021, we'd gotten back to around about 20% down on revenue prior to lockdowns. And now we are back to where we were prior to lockdowns, and we're seeing growth in the areas that have been out of lockdown increasing at faster rates than we have before. So to put that in perspective, even though our revenues were stable for the last year, and I'll get to a slide for that, we have got the UK is 6 months ahead of us with lockdowns. As such, they are above all-time high records, and we're 6 months behind. So we're still a little bit below, and we're starting to see that catch up now in the first quarter of this year. All right, so if we can go to slide 3, that would be great. So we had a very strong financial performance in 2022. Revenue for net revenue, this isn't gross revenue, net revenue to our office is up 27.9% to 24.6 million. EBITDA was up to 6.2 from 21.4%, and the profit after tax was up 8.4% to 1.9, which is a record after-tax profit. A 13% increase in scheduled lessons. And this is the most important part. The actual number of lessons are increasing. We're not quite back to where we were pre-COVID, if you extrapolate for 2020, but we are very close. And we paid a dividend of 1 cent for the full, 1 cent for the half. So it's actually a cash flow positive business. So we can go to the next slide, please. All right, our global network revenue. So as a franchisor, we only book the percentage that we get. So we have got 62 franchisees in South Africa, 4 or 5 in Kenya, 1 in Nigeria, and a few in Zimbabwe. So our network revenues are 5.3 for the area. As you know, the currencies for the African countries are very low, but that is still up 13%. But our online lessons were down. So we charge a fixed fee for online. It's actually quite high. It's in US dollars. So a lot of the franchisees there chose to pivot back to face-to-face very quickly, but it's still around about 6%, 7% of the business overall. In the United Kingdom and Europe, we turned over 51.5 million Aussie. It was impacted by the British pound strengthening during the year, but that's still a great result for us. It is the most significant market. They have 270 franchisees in the UK. We've got online lessons at 17.4%. So even though it's down what it was, it's still holding at 35% of revenue. Now in Australia, we're at 39.9 network revenue. Online lessons are still around about the 40% mark. So we've got a stronger hold of online. And during the year, we bought a business out of the US called Tutorfly. Its network revenues were 2.1, and I'll get to that business a bit later. Go to the next slide, please. All right. So I'll just go over this quickly. We've already been through this significant growth year on year across the business. Revenue up, EBITDA up, and NPAT was up. So go to the next slide, please. All right, so as I was saying before, we are seeing increased demand in franchise channels. So to put that in perspective, if you actually read the papers on a daily basis, there is significant learning gaps across the entire world for all children because of the pandemic. Now, I have some statistics for some of the testing that we've done. They are actually verified by the actual government departments that we've done them for. In Abu Dhabi, where we actually have got a government contract, we actually did testing of 5th class students, and they are working at a 2nd class level. So what's happened, the 3rd class students, when the pandemic hit, are now in 5th class. They've actually regressed a year. So they've actually gone back 1 year during the pandemic instead of forward. So they're 3 years behind. This is a significant problem, and parents are starting to see what they can do to improve this problem. Now, governments are looking at what they can do to improve this problem as well. So in Abu Dhabi, we actually have a contract to teach in government schools at the moment, and it is worth around 7 million Australian dollars. 200,000 was 700,000 is our cut, and 200,000 was in last year. We'll have about 500,000 in revenue for the Middle East from that government contract for Australia in this full year and in this half, actually. And we also have another example. We have a business in America called Tutorfly, and we did testing prior to tuition of a government contract that we won for children in 5th class again. And basically, the government legislates over there that they should have 50% of students working at year level. We tested them, they had 5% working at year level, which is, you know, it's just a tragedy really. But after a full year of high dosage tutoring done by Tutorfly, we were able to get that back up to 45%. So it's a significant result for us. So increasing lesson demand across the franchise channel. So franchise fees were up 12.75% last year. We've got 2 styles of franchisees. One is silver and one is gold. Silver partners are our original partners at 10% of revenue, and gold partners are ones that have got extra services. We do their payroll, their P&L, balance sheet. We do all the collection of fees, credit card, direct debit. So our gold partners in the UK delivered a 19% uplift. So our gold partners are younger than the other ones. They were less than 10 years in the business, and we're seeing that the gold partners who are hungrier than the silver partners are significantly up compared to the rest of the business. We're also starting to see gold partner sales because of this large exodus of teachers from the network in the school system. We're seeing a strong pipeline for sales, both in Australia, New Zealand, and in the UK. We should see increased sales. They've been down in the last 2 years, mostly because we couldn't train people because of lockdowns. But we should see that sales bounce back up over the next 6 to 12 months. And the also thing is the in-centre lesson demand is strong where markets have emerged from lockdown. Now, a lot of people still have issues with online tuition. They are not skeptical whether it works, and they've seen the schools using online and are very wary of whether it will actually work or not. So there is a strong demand for face-to-face. So people like to go to centres, they like to see people, and they like to see their tutor. Go to the next slide, please. All right. So basically, we have got 4 strategies to continue to grow our business. So technology and franchise, the first and the last one on there, we consider those to be business as usual. So at the moment, we spent 2.6 million in capital last year for the technology. We have got our own learning management system with 80,000 questions inside it. It does all of the heavy lifting, as I mentioned earlier, with regard to lesson planning and also for the teacher to give drill work to the students. We have upgraded that learning management system. It is now finished. We should see our capital expenditure go down this year because of that. And we have now rolled out that technology to all of our corporate centres. Talk about corporate centres in a minute. And that is 2,700 students a week. So our latest software is now being rolled out. That's very good for us because the software now has the ability to do a blended model. It doesn't matter to me whether the child is in centre, is at home, or the teacher is in centre or at home. They'll be able to consume the product just as well either way. We also have a focus on that technology being rolled out to the rest of the franchisees, which generally for us means an increase in sales and an increase in student numbers as people get excited to use the new technology. Now, Tutorfly is a US focus. We have received 1 government contract last year. We have now got 3 that we're actually doing in Tutorfly, so we should see that business grow over the next 12 months. But our big thing that we've been growing over the last 3 years is our corporate business. So by corporate business, that means that we run the business ourselves. So that means that there's no longer a franchisee, the business is run by a head office. So we have 25 centres that are corporately owned, 1 in the UK, 1 in New Zealand, and 23 in Australia. We opened 9 last year. Revenue for the group was 6.5, which was up 115%. And we will be rolling out the technology this half and then pursuing another 5 or 10 corporate centre purchases or openings next half. And then onto the franchise network. As I said before, when you look at the businesses itself, the demand is there, the actual technology and the excitement from the franchisees are there. They're happy to be back in the centre teaching their kids. So we should see that franchise growth will continue again this year. Tim, I think that's it for me.
Yeah, thanks, Storm. A fantastic Australian success story from the family garage into the US. Congratulations.
Thank you.
A couple of quick questions. What role will acquisitions play, particularly moving forward in somewhere like the US, for example?
Yeah, we're pursuing 2 strategies in the US. One is what we call a marketplace business, which is basically matching college kids with high school kids. So at this point, we'll just leave that as an online business. The second strategy is they have things in the US they have ESSA funding, and the funding is basically to help with the COVID gap created because of the lockdowns, and that's 120 billion US dollars. So all of the districts are using that money to fill that gap, and some of the districts in the US are just unbelievable in scale. Like for instance, California and New York are bigger than the entire Australian market put together. So we have to pursue the little ones. We've got one in Phoenix, Arizona that we did last year. We've got more work from them this year. We've just secured another contract in a nearby district, and we've got another district in New Mexico. So we're pursuing a model with an ex-principal who's selling for us to grow that business. So at this point in time, we'll just concentrate on growing the tuition of school children within the school market. But as far as acquisitions go, next year or the year after, we start to look at whether we greenfield or whether we acquire another tutoring business to grow the business for sure.
And as you mentioned, COVID must have been a really difficult time, other than you pivoted quickly into online. And so you got online, you got your in-centre lessons, if you like, and then you got your corporate centres. Where's the growth and where's your major focus?
Yeah, well, the corporate business has been growing really well. It went from startup to 1.2, 3.4, 6.5 in the last 3 years. So expecting, to continue on that sort of trajectory. The good news about that business is that last year it made no money. The year before lost a bit, and the year before lost a lot. This year we expect it to make money, and it's about the margin. We're talking about margin. So in the franchise business, we got to a margin of about 34, 35% pre-COVID. We're at 25% last year. So we've had margin compression because of the corporate centers. Now, with the corporate centers now starting to mature, we should see our margins go up as we get maturity in the corporate business and they get to make a profit. So that's so it goes. So it has gross revenue. So all 300,000 in revenue, not just 60,000 goes to the top line, and we should see the margins come back. So that's probably the most exciting part of the business.
And of course, it's a really competitive space, online learning in particular. Can you talk about how you differentiate and your offering from those competitors?
Absolutely. So we use only school teachers, and so it's a professional school teacher. They have got what we call a Goldilocks principle exactly right. And what I mean by that is you have to get the children on work that's not too easy, not too hard, but just right. So school teachers are good at that. So they test the children, find out what they can and can't do, develop a lesson plan to increase their gaps so that they get back up to where they should be performing in the classroom. And you really need a professional teacher to do that using a good curriculum to follow. And that's our differentiation point.
Good answer. Storm, thanks for your time. That's all we got time for. Have a nice weekend. Fantastic Australian success story.
Thanks, Tim.